It was one of those October afternoons when the sun hangs low and everything feels golden. I walked into my usual coffee shop, the one on 5th Street with the creaky wooden floors and mismatched furniture. You know the type, where students camp out with laptops and the baristas know your order before you say it. I'd been coming here for 3 years. Same spot, same corner table by the window. It was my routine after work, my little escape where I could catch up on emails or just sit and think. But that day everything was different. The place was packed. Really crowded. Every seat taken, people standing by the counter waiting for tables. I stood there for a moment, laptop bag on my shoulder, scanning the room like I always did. My corner was occupied by a group of college kids, their textbooks spread everywhere. I was about to leave when the barista, Tony, called out to me. "Hey, there's a spot at the big table near the back. You'll have to share, but it's something." I wasn't thrilled about it. I liked my space, my routine. But the alternative was going home to my empty apartment, and honestly, I wasn't ready for that silence yet. So I nodded and made my way through the maze of chairs and backpacks. That's when I saw her. She was sitting at the far end of this long wooden table, completely absorbed in whatever she was doing. Didn't even look up when I approached. I set my bag down, pulled out the chair across from her, and that scraping sound made her glance up for just a second. Our eyes met. I can't really explain what happened in that moment. It wasn't like the movies where everything goes into slow motion or music starts playing. It was simpler than that, but somehow more. Her eyes had this quality to them, like they were really seeing, not just looking. You know how most people make eye contact and it's just automatic, just polite? This wasn't that. She gave me a small nod, almost a smile, then went back to her work. I sat down, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on the presentation I was supposed to be working on. But I couldn't. She was sketching something in this old leather journal, the kind that looks like it's been everywhere, with corners worn soft and pages bulging slightly. Her hand moved across the page in quick, confident strokes. Sometimes she'd pause, tilt her head, then continue. She had this way of biting her lower lip when she was concentrating that was completely unself-conscious. I forced myself to look at my screen. Come on, focus. This presentation is due tomorrow. But my eyes kept drifting back. She was probably in her early 30s, though it was hard to tell. Dark hair pulled back loosely, a few strands falling around her face. She wore this deep green sweater that looked soft and lived in, and silver rings on her fingers. Not expensive jewelry, just simple bands that caught the light when she moved her hand. What struck me most was her presence. She wasn't trying to be noticed, wasn't performing for anyone. She was just completely in her own world, and there was something magnetic about that. In a room full of people chatting and typing and scrolling through phones, she was entirely present with what she was doing. I realized I'd been staring and quickly looked back at my laptop. Smooth. Real smooth. 20 minutes passed. I'd typed maybe 2 sentences. This was ridiculous. I was a 34-year-old professional who couldn't focus because someone was sitting across from him. What was wrong with me? The truth was, I'd been going through life on autopilot for the past year and a half. Ever since the divorce, everything felt muted. I went to work, came to the coffee shop, went home, slept, repeated. I told myself I was fine, that I was healing, that I just needed time. But really, I was just going through the motions. This woman, though, just sitting there sketching, had somehow turned the volume back up on everything. The coffee smelled richer. The conversations around us sounded more alive. Even the light coming through the window seemed warmer. She looked up again, this time holding my gaze for a moment longer. I should say something, anything, but what? Nice weather? Come here often? God, no, I managed to smile. She smiled back and it reached her eyes. Then she returned to her journal. Another 15 minutes. The coffee shop was getting louder as the after-work crowd filled in. Someone's laptop was playing music a bit too loud. A group near us was debating something about politics. Through it all, she kept drawing, occasionally sipping from her cup of what looked like tea. I found myself wondering about her. What was she drawing? Was she an artist? A student? Did she come here often? Was she meeting someone? The questions multiplied, and I realized I was more curious about a stranger than I'd been about anything in months. That's when it happened. She reached for her cup without looking, misjudged the distance slightly, and knocked it. It didn't fall completely, but tea sloshed out across the table. Heading straight for her journal, she gasped and grabbed the book, lifting it just in time. I was already moving, pulling napkins from my bag. "Here, let me help." We both started mopping up the spill, our hands working quickly. The tea hadn't reached her journal, but it had created a small river across the wooden table. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was lower than I expected, warm. "I would have been devastated if that got my sketches. No problem." "I'm just glad your book is safe." She laughed a little, examining the journal. "This thing has survived coffee spills, rain being dropped in a puddle once. It's got 9 lives." We finished cleaning up, and there was this moment where we both sat back down, but now the invisible wall between us had come down. We weren't strangers sharing a table anymore. We were 2 people who'd just had a moment together. "I'm sorry for the distraction," she said. "You're probably trying to work." Honestly, I wasn't getting much done anyway. She glanced at my laptop screen, then back at me. There was something knowing in her expression. Presentations have a way of resisting us when we're not in the mood. "You could tell it's a presentation?" I saw the slide template. "Plus you have that look." "What look?" "The one that says you'd rather be anywhere but working on whatever that is." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time, and I couldn't remember how long. "You got me. Yeah, it's for work tomorrow, and I'm completely uninspired." She closed her journal and set it aside, giving me her full attention. That's when I noticed her eyes weren't just one color, but had these flecks of gold in them. "What do you do?" she asked, and just like that we were talking. Not the surface-level small talk you do with strangers, but real conversation. The kind where you actually listen to the answers and respond with something genuine. The afternoon light faded into evening. The coffee shop crowd changed around us. And there we sat, 2 people who'd been strangers an hour ago, discovering that sometimes the most unexpected moments are the ones that change everything. I didn't know it then, but that spilled tea was going to alter the entire direction of my life. We talked about everything and nothing. She told me she worked with people, helping them express things they couldn't put into words. I didn't fully understand at first, but then she explained she was an art therapist. She helped people work through trauma, anxiety, all the heavy stuff we carry around by creating art. "You don't have to be good at art," she said. "That's not the point. It's about getting what's inside you out there where you can see it, touch it, deal with it." I'd never heard of anything like that. It sounded almost too simple, but the way she talked about it, I could tell it was powerful. She had this passion in her voice when she described watching someone have a breakthrough, finally expressing something they'd been holding on to for years. "What made you want to do that?" I asked. She looked down at her journal, running her thumb along the edge of the pages. "Personal experience, honestly. I went through something years ago that I couldn't talk about. Couldn't even think about it directly. But I could draw it. And once I did, once I saw it outside of myself, I could start to heal." There was a weight to those words, a history I could sense but didn't pry into. We'd only just met. But I appreciated her honesty. "What about you?" she asked. "Marketing consultant sounds very corporate," I laughed. "It is, very corporate. Very safe, very predictable. You say that like it's a bad thing. It's not bad. It's just—" I paused, trying to find the right words. "It's not what I thought I'd be doing. When I was younger, I wanted to write stories, articles, maybe a book someday. But life happens, you know? Bills to pay, expectations to meet. It's not too late," she said simply. "I'm 34. So, you could live another 50 years. That's a lot of time to do something different." I wanted to argue, to list all the reasons why it wasn't that simple. But sitting there with her, the excuses felt hollow. She had this way of cutting through the noise and getting to what mattered. "Can I ask you something?" she said, tilting her head slightly. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping." "Sure." You smile with your mouth but not your eyes. I noticed it earlier. "What are you protecting yourself from?" The question hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. Nobody had called me out like that in, well, ever. My friends accepted my "I'm fine" at face value. My family stopped asking after a while. But this woman I'd known for less than an hour saw right through me. I could have deflected, made a joke, changed the subject. But something about the way she asked, gentle but direct, genuinely curious without being pushy, made me want to be honest. "I got divorced last year," I said. "Well, it was finalized last year. The marriage had been over for a while before that." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was the right thing. We weren't happy, either of us. But it still—" I searched for the words. "It still knocked me sideways. Made me question everything. Who I am, what I want, whether I'm capable of really connecting with anyone." She nodded slowly, like she understood more than I was saying. So you smile to show people you're okay, but you don't let it reach your eyes because that would mean actually feeling okay. Yeah, I said quietly. Yeah, that's exactly it. We sat in silence for a moment. Not an awkward silence, but the kind where something true has been spoken and needs a moment to settle. You want to know what I see when I look at you? She asked. I'm not sure I do, I said, half joking. She smiled. Someone who's been holding his breath for a long time, waiting for permission to exhale. I didn't know what to say to that. It was too accurate, too close to something I'd been feeling but couldn't name. My turn for honesty, she said, shifting in her seat. I was engaged a few years ago. He was great on paper, good job, loved by everyone, said all the right things. But he wanted me to be someone I wasn't, quieter, more conventional, less intense. I kept trying to fold myself into the shape he wanted until one day I realized I was disappearing. What happened? I called it off. 3 months before the wedding. It was messy. People took sides. Some friends stopped talking to me. But I could breathe again, you know. I did know. That's exactly how I'd felt after my divorce once the dust settled. Like I could finally breathe. So now I'm careful, she continued. Maybe too careful. I don't let people in easily because I'm afraid of losing myself again. But you're telling me all this, I pointed out. She looked at me with those eyes that seemed to see everything. I am, aren't I? That's unusual for me. Me too. I don't usually open up to strangers. Maybe we're not strangers anymore. The coffee shop had gotten quieter. I glanced around and realized it was almost closing time. Hours had passed without me noticing. The presentation I was supposed to work on was completely forgotten. My laptop screen dark. I should probably let you go, she said, though she didn't move to pack up her things. Probably, I agreed. Also not moving. Neither of us wanted to end this, whatever this was. It felt like we'd stumbled into something rare and walking away would mean losing it. She pulled out her phone. This might be forward, but would you want to maybe do this again? The talking part, not the tea spilling part, I laughed. I'd like that. A lot, actually. We exchanged numbers. She saved mine under coffee shop guy and showed me, grinning. I saved hers under the artist and showed her back. Very creative, both of us, she said. As we packed up our things, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Anticipation. Not dread about tomorrow's presentation or anxiety about the future, but genuine excitement about what might happen next. We walked out together. The evening air was cool, autumn settling in properly. She pulled her sweater tighter around herself. Which way are you headed? I asked. West, you? East, of course, she said with a smile. Opposite directions. We stood there on the sidewalk outside the coffee shop, neither of us quite ready to walk away. Thanks for the conversation, she said. I mean it. I came here today feeling pretty heavy and now I feel lighter. Same. I didn't know I needed to talk until I did. That's usually how it works. She gave me a small wave and started walking west. I watched her for a moment, then headed east, my mind racing with everything we'd talked about. I'd come to that coffee shop expecting another forgettable afternoon. Another hour of forcing myself to care about work I didn't find meaningful. Instead, I'd met someone who saw through my defenses, who shared her own struggles, who made me feel something again. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Don't work too hard on that presentation. Life's too short for uninspired work. I smiled, with my mouth and my eyes this time, and typed back, noted, same time next week? Her reply came quickly, make it tomorrow. Same table if we're lucky. I put my phone away and walked home through the cooling evening, feeling like I'd just woken up from a very long sleep. Tomorrow turned into the next day, which turned into the next week, which turned into a month. We kept meeting at that coffee shop, always managing to find our table near the back. It became our spot, our routine. But it wasn't just coffee shop meetings. She started showing me her world piece by piece. One Saturday, she texted me early in the morning. Want to see something beautiful? I met her at an art gallery downtown, one of those small places you'd walk past without noticing. Inside, the walls were covered with paintings by local artists. But she didn't take me there to see the paintings. She took me to meet the artists. This is Daniel. She introduced me to an older man with paint-stained hands. He started painting at 65 after his wife passed. This is his third show. Daniel's paintings were simple landscapes, nothing fancy. But when you looked at them, you could feel something. Loneliness, memory, hope trying to peek through grief. She loved the mountains, Daniel told us, pointing to a painting of snow-capped peaks. We never made it to Switzerland like we planned. So now I paint them. It's my way of taking her there. After we left the gallery, I was quiet. She walked beside me, letting me process. That got to you, she said. It wasn't a question, it did. He lost everything and found a way to keep going. To create something. I don't think I could do that. You're already doing it, she said. You lost your marriage, your sense of who you were, and you're still here. Still showing up. That takes courage too. I wanted to believe her. She had this way of reframing things, showing me different angles I couldn't see on my own. The next week, she brought me to a community center where she volunteered. It was Tuesday evening, and she was leading an art session for teenagers who were going through tough times. I sat in the back and watched her work. She was completely different there, not just the woman I knew, but someone more. She moved between the kids with such ease, saying exactly what each one needed to hear, encouraging one who was frustrated, sitting quietly with another who was crying, celebrating a breakthrough with a third. One kid, a teenage boy with a hood pulled up, wasn't creating anything. Just sitting there staring at the blank paper in front of him. She pulled up a chair next to him. I couldn't hear what she said, but after a few minutes he picked up a pencil. Started with one line, then another. By the end of the session, he'd filled the page with dark, swirling shapes that somehow made sense. As we walked out, she looked exhausted but happy. You're really good at that, I told her. It's not about being good. It's about being present. Those kids don't need someone to fix them. They need someone to see them. I thought about that a lot over the following days. Being seen, wasn't that what she'd done for me? Seen past the smile I wore like armor? We started taking walks through the city late at night. She loved the city after dark. Said it showed its true face when the daytime crowds went home. We'd walk for hours talking about everything. Our fears, our dreams, the things we wished we'd done differently. One night we were walking through a park when it started raining. Not a heavy rain, just a light drizzle. Everyone else ran for cover, but she stopped and tilted her face up to the sky. Come on, she laughed, grabbing my hand. We walked through the rain like idiots, completely soaked, laughing at nothing and everything. When was the last time I'd done something that spontaneous, that free? We ended up under an awning outside a closed bookstore, dripping wet, trying to catch our breath from laughing. That's when it almost happened. We were standing close, our shoulders touching. She looked up at me, rain droplets on her eyelashes, and something shifted. The air between us became charged, electric. I leaned in slightly. She did too. We were inches apart and I could feel the warmth of her breath. Then she stepped back. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I can't, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's not you, she interrupted. It's me. I'm not ready for that. We stood there awkwardly, all the ease between us suddenly gone. I didn't know what to say. Everything had been going so well, and I'd ruined it by pushing too fast. I should go, she said. I'll text you. She left me standing there, confused and soaked, wondering what had just happened. She didn't text the next day, or the day after that. A week went by with silence. I thought about reaching out but didn't want to pressure her. If she needed space, I'd give her space, but it was killing me. I'd gotten used to her presence in my life, her texts, our conversations. The silence felt like losing something I didn't even know I had. My friends noticed the change in me. I'd been happier the past month, more present, more like my old self. Now I was withdrawn again. What happened? My buddy Ryan asked over drinks. I messed things up with someone. The woman you've been seeing? We weren't seeing each other. Not like that. We were just friends. Ryan gave me a look. Man, you've been talking about her nonstop for a month. You're not just friends, he was right. Somewhere between the coffee shop conversations and the late-night walks, I'd fallen for her. Not the surface-level attraction I'd felt that first day, but something deeper. I'd fallen for her mind, her passion, the way she challenged me to be better, and I'd scared her off. 2 weeks after the rain incident, I finally broke down and texted her. I miss talking to you. No pressure, no expectations. I just miss my friend. She replied an hour later. I miss you too. Can we meet tomorrow? Same place? I showed up early, nervous like it was a first date. She arrived right on time, looking tired but determined. We got our drinks and sat at our table. I owe you an explanation, she started. You don't owe me anything. I do, actually. You've been nothing but honest with me and I've been running away. She told me then about her job opportunity. A dream position in another city, working with a well-known mental health organization. They'd reached out to her a month ago, right around when we met. She'd been considering it, going back and forth, unable to decide. The last time I was in a relationship, he asked me to give up a job opportunity for him. And I did. I chose him over my career, and it was a mistake. Not just because it didn't work out, but because I resented him for it. I resented myself for it. I would never ask you to do that, I said. I know. That's what scares me. Because if I fall for you and I have to choose between you and this opportunity, I'll have to choose the job, and I don't want to hurt you. So you're running away before that can happen. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm running away because I'm scared. I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared of hurting you. I'm scared that I'll lose myself again in trying to be what someone else needs. I reached across the table and took her hand. I don't want you to be anything other than exactly who you are. If that means taking the job in another city, then take it. I'm not going anywhere you don't understand. If I leave, then we'll figure it out, or we won't. But I'd rather have whatever time we have than nothing at all, because you're afraid of what might happen. She squeezed my hand, looking at me like I'd just said something important. Maybe I had. After that conversation, things changed between us. Not in a bad way, but the stakes felt higher. We both knew what was happening, even if we weren't saying it out loud. We were falling for each other, and time was running out. She had 2 weeks to decide about the job. 2 weeks before she had to give them an answer. We spent those 2 weeks practically living in each other's pockets. Every free moment we were together. Coffee shops, museums, her apartment, my apartment. We talked about everything except the one thing that mattered. What happens when the 2 weeks are up? One evening she told me to dress nice. She was taking me somewhere special. We ended up at a small theater downtown. I haven't been to a play in years, I said. It's not a play, she said mysteriously. It was an improv comedy show. I'd never seen one before. Watching people create stories on the spot, building on each other's ideas, taking risks in front of a live audience. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. After the show, as we walked to get late-night food, she said, "You should try that." What, improv? No way. I'd freeze up there. That's exactly why you should do it. You've spent so long playing it safe, living the life other people expected. When was the last time you did something that scared you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I can't remember. Then maybe it's time to start. A few days later, I found myself signing up for a beginner improv class. I almost backed out 3 times before the first session, but I kept hearing her voice. When was the last time you did something that scared you? The first class was a disaster. I was stiff, self-conscious, overthinking everything. But by the third class, something shifted. I started to let go, to stop worrying about looking stupid, to just be present and respond. It was like therapy, getting out of my own way. She was right. I needed this. Meanwhile, she was getting quieter about the job. She'd bring it up, then change the subject. I could see the conflict in her eyes, wanting to stay, knowing she should go. My friends met her finally during a dinner at Ryan's place. She fit right in, laughing at their stories, sharing her own. After she left to use the bathroom, Ryan pulled me aside. Okay, I get it now. She's special. I know. So what are you going to do when she leaves? I don't know. You should tell her how you feel. Before it's too late, but how could I? If I told her I loved her, and yeah, I'd admitted to myself by then that I loved her, it would make her choice harder. She'd already said the last guy made her choose. I wouldn't be that person. One night, about a week before she had to give her answer, we were at her apartment. She lived in this tiny studio with plants everywhere and art covering every wall. Some of it was hers, some from her students and clients. She made us tea and we sat on her couch, just talking quietly. The conversation drifted to the job. I think I'm going to take it, she said finally. My heart dropped, but I kept my face neutral. Yeah? It's the right move for my career. The work they do there is incredible. I'd be helping so many more people than I can here. That sounds amazing. She looked at me, reading my face. You're doing that thing again. Smiling with your mouth but not your eyes. I'm happy for you. I mean it. But you're sad too, I couldn't lie to her. Yeah, I'm sad too. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't go. You have to do what's right for you. What if what's right for me is staying? Is it? She didn't answer. Just looked down at her tea, her expression conflicted. The next few days were torture. She was pulling away again, and I didn't know how to stop it. Didn't know if I should stop it. Ryan's words kept echoing in my head. Tell her how you feel. But another voice was louder. Don't make her choose. Don't be like the last guy. Then, 3 days before her deadline, something happened that changed everything. A mutual friend, one of the women from her art therapy group who I'd met a few times, pulled me aside after an exhibition opening. Can I tell you something? She asked. About her? Okay. She told me about the job. And about you. She's terrified. Of what? Of making the same mistake twice. Her ex didn't just ask her to give up a job. He asked her to give up everything. Her friends, her hobbies, her dreams. Piece by piece until she didn't recognize herself anymore. And she did it because she thought that's what love meant. Sacrifice. I felt sick. I would never. I know. She knows too. That's what scares her. Because with you, she actually wants to stay. With him, she stayed out of obligation. With you, she'd be staying because she wants to. And that terrifies her because what if she loses herself again anyway? I sat with that for a long time after the friend left. Understanding clicked into place. She wasn't running from me. She was running from the possibility of losing herself even in something good. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything, our first meeting, our conversations, the way she'd opened up my world, the way I'd fallen for her without even realizing it was happening. I thought about what I'd learned in improv class. Say yes. Build on what your partner gives you. Trust the process. Take the risk. I grabbed my laptop and started writing. Not a presentation, not work stuff, a letter. Everything I felt, everything I wanted to say but had been too scared to voice. I wrote about how she'd woken me up from autopilot, how she'd shown me what it meant to be fully alive again. I wrote about loving her, not in spite of her leaving, but enough to support whatever choice she made. I wrote about how I'd been playing it safe my whole life, and how she'd taught me that the real risk wasn't in trying, it was in not trying at all. I told her to take the job, to chase her dreams, that I'd be here if she wanted me, but I wouldn't hold her back. I printed it out at 2 a.m., sealed it in an envelope, and left it at the coffee shop the next morning with Tony the barista. Give this to her when she comes in, I said. Should I tell her it's from you? She'll know. Then I did something that felt impossible. I gave her space. No texts, no calls. If she wanted to respond to the letter, she would. If she didn't, at least I'd been honest. 2 days passed. The longest 2 days of she sat across from me, eyes glinting, and turned the room into something I couldn't ignore.